cash flow and improve the little turnaround and the turning of the hand in Grenville. Last Friday I was in Grenville, and I sat with a small retail shop speaking to the owner, and this is precisely what she was speaking about, how the fact of the bi-monthly payment has helped to improve people's cash flow and improve the little turnaround and the turning of the hand in Grenville, as a good example. In that same shop, I was speaking to a young lady, and when I asked her what she did, she said she was a quote-unquote Imani teacher. And I said to her, what's your salary? And she said, it is now $1,200 because you made it $1,200. What was that prior? $700, $800. That's a 1/3 increase, right? And even then I said to her, you know what, if you're a teacher and you're making $1,200 and I was your student, I'd have a hard time, because I'd say to you, miss, I might have to go and hustle. I'm not so sure that I'd be prepared to work for that. And the point I'm making here is that this is what we have done to our citizens, and I'm saying we here as in governments past, by underpaying them, by masking what we call a training program for, in effect, the supply of cheap labor for a prolonged period, and disadvantage our citizens and disadvantage our economy. Because if you don't have spending power, then the economy will not grow. If people don't have money to buy things, to make things, to do things, the economy will not grow. So the fact is, this is just one of a number of steps that we're going to have to take over a long period of time to correct the bad economic policies, because that's a bad economic policy, in addition to the fact that socially, it is not social justice. It is not working justice. If you have a training program, once the training is completed, people should go into the job market and earn market rates, not drag on the training program for years and years and years to then suppress people's wage rates. And then remember, people are not going to be stuck at 19. They go from 19 to 30. They get pregnant. They start raising families, and then they're raising them on trainee salaries. Right? So these are not issues we are going to be able to solve overnight. I mean, we've taken incremental steps by addressing the minimum wage. For example, we're taking incremental steps by addressing issues like the pensions. Right? We are going to take incremental steps by ensuring that people don't have these contracts where they have these fixed terms of 1 year, 1 year, 1 year, and you have to constantly renew them and so on. But these things are going to take time. We are working on them. We want to make sure that the right architecture is in place, the right infrastructure is in place for the smooth transitioning. We are hoping to bring the legislation to Parliament to create a new pension plan so that it goes into effect on the 1st of October. And then going forward, it means all of the contracted employees and so on would have the opportunity to be on this pension plan, would have the job security that allows them to go to a bank and get a loan without these 1 year contracts at the end of it. So, but we all have to manage the economy prudently. We have to manage the government's fiscal situation prudently as well. Hence the reason for making sure that we understand the implications of the decisions that we are making. But I can tell you, there are many persons. If you were at the town hall in Grenville, and this is what I mean about hope, you would have heard a retired cook in a school talk about how proud she was of the fact that even though she may not have benefited from it, that her sister, brothers and sister cooks in school will now benefit from the increase in the minimum wage, right? When these persons retire, they're not on a pension scheme, right? They get $200 or $300 a month from the government. We've increased that to $500, right? Because what happens is that these people, after feeding our children for 20 and 30 years by cooking for them in schools, go out at the most vulnerable age, senior citizens, oftentimes with significant medical bills, and then they go from whatever the minimal wage they're already earning as a cook, they then go out into the community and then they're getting $200 or $300, right? And how are they going to live on that? They then come right back to the government social programs, right? So it's a vicious cycle that we've created by not ensuring that we can at least have pension plans so that when they retire, they have their pension and that they can spend the money back into the economy, and that you don't have larger and larger numbers of people going on the government social welfare system, which again is paid for by taxpayers, right? But you see, if all you see people as is a vote, as a transaction, then you will grow such a system, because in the end it makes everybody in the country, it impoverishes the country, and it makes everybody dependent on the government social welfare system. And if you depend on the government social welfare system, you know what that means. You can manipulate them by saying, if you want to be on that system, you have to vote for me. Right?
Absolutely.
And that is how they created a reservoir of votes to have kept them in power for several decades, frankly. And it's going to be a hard thing to break, but we are determined to begin to lay the foundations for making sure that we can break this over time and explain to our citizens, you're not going to become wealthy well, wealthy is probably too ambitious. You're not even going to be able to take care of yourselves and your family if you're on the government social safety net and welfare programs.
Exactly. So, having expressed all of this, the claim of a previous party who states that they are the champion for the poor and the workers, therefore cannot hold any water anymore.
It never held water. I think the problem, so the problem I think from a National Democratic Congress perspective is that we have not championed how this party came into being. So let me just make this clear. The National Democratic Congress was formed by people like George Brizan and Dr. Alexis because Keith Mitchell and Howard Blaze decided they were going to sack and retrench public workers.
Yep.
And on principle, they disagreed with the approach to solving the government's fiscal challenges. And that is the birth of the NDC. So the NDC is a working class, pro-working class, pro the improvement of working class, and it has always been. And if you look at all of the initiatives that we've taken since forming the government, it is all about workers. Absolutely. The pensions, the bi-monthly payment, the dock salaries from the teachers. We don't highlight it. The government has spent almost $3 or $4 million resolving that dispute with TAMCC and the lecturers and so on there.
Right.
Right? The minimum wage. Right? It is about working class people. We've increased under the seed the benefits to the elderly. We've increased the benefits to the disabled. So when you talk about disadvantaged people and quote-unquote poor and vulnerable, we're the ones who've taken decisive efforts, steps, programs, and put money in their pocket. Their approach to loving the poor and vulnerable is to keep you poor and vulnerable so they can transact you for a vote.
Absolutely.
That's the bottom line. Right? So we have to understand that. And if we don't understand that, and you can check the history of various things that are anti-workers, right? And you'll appreciate that reality. Who've poached union leaders to come into politics so that you can then dismantle the unions and the strength of the unions? Not the National Democratic Congress.
Indeed.
Right? Who've gotten union leaders to sacrifice their principles over the altar of politics? And when they walk into a labor union, a labor day, they're being booed. Not the National Democratic Congress. So I want workers of this country to make sure they study, read, and observe the behaviors of people who tell you they care about workers and the working class. Do they come and associate with you? Do they face the fire at Labor Day and come and take the criticism or take the compliments? Do they show up in person? Do they attend your activities? People may not know that. When I joined the National Democratic Congress, I invited various union leaders to meet with me. Not one of them met. Not one of them met with me. Because either they're afraid of NNP or they're afraid of this or they're afraid of that. They didn't have the courage. Within 2 weeks of forming the government, it was union leaders who were meeting with me in the cabinet office, where we announced to them that this was no election gimmick and that we will be paying the pensions and that we intended to do so by November. And that we were paying all of the back pay. Right? So I want to say something about this. And it's important for us Grenadians to understand. We need to learn to observe, we need to pay attention, and we need to be honest with ourselves about the people who actually care about the citizens of Grenada and those who just in it for the limelight or for our vote or for mamagism or whatever it is. If there are challenges, we will come to the workers and explain the challenges. Life isn't black and white. But we have made good on our commitments to the workers. We intend to continue making good our commitments to the workers. And I will end by commending the workers because I think the workers appreciate, understand, and acknowledge that. And that's why I think we had the record time within which we were able to sign off on the respective trade union agreements for salary increases and other fringe benefits for the workers with no fanfare, no demonstration, no teachers walking up and down in the hot sun, because we were honest. We brought in a professional, experienced negotiator who understands the need to respect the other side, understands the integrity in the process in the form of Mr. Bernard Antwine, and I think that helped the process because they recognized no one was trying to trick them, no one was making public statements about the unions or their membership in terms of the demands or the ask. So I just want to re-emphasize, it is working class people who build a nation. That's all of us.
Indeed.
We all have to work. And we need to work honestly, We need to always try ways to improve our skills, our technology, our productivity, and we need to also make sure that people are fairly compensated for that, and that crucially build a system over time, because it's not a stroke of a pen, that allows workers when they retire that they have adequate income that they can continue living on.
Right, so that's our beloved Prime Minister, the most Honorable Deacon Mitchell, there on the Heartbeat program last Sunday, well, Sunday gone. That was a very powerful, powerful, well, I want to call it presentation, but discussion with Terry Forrester. And I think the Prime Minister is absolutely correct. We have not been able to champion the whole conversation regarding the pro-worker party and the party who is not for workers. Because I have been speaking about it for a while on this program. The NDC is a pro-worker party. The NDC is a party for the workers of the state of Grenada, which includes Carriacou and PT Martinique. The NDC also, as a party and government, have done far more for the ordinary man and woman in the country, the people who the NNP call the poor and the vulnerable. And I think it is something that we need to put out there and lay the facts on the table for. Because the NNP, they're good at talking. So they talk. They make their supporters believe that they love the poor and the vulnerable. They love to keep you poor and vulnerable so that they control you. And when election time comes around, they get your vote. But when it comes to the NDC has demonstrated that they care about you and they want to lift you out of poverty. They want to create with you a better life. And I think it's a conversation that we must have. So our beloved Prime Minister explained it nicely. When you look at the both parties, you would realize that the NDC has done far more for the workers of Grenada, Carriacou, and PT Martinique. And the NDC has done far more for the ordinary man and woman in the country that the NNP calls the poor and the vulnerable. And the evidence is there to show. When the NDC came into power, and I'm not just talking about this NDC or the previous one, from the very beginning, they have always focused heavily on improving the conditions for workers. Let's look at this NDC administration. They increased the minimum wage. The NNP never increased the minimum wage for workers in this country. They never. The NDC came in and yet again, they increase the minimum wage for workers in this country. You had workers who used to collect $700 a month, $800 a month. They're now collecting $1,200 a month. You had cooks, cleaners collecting $800 a month. The NNP never saw the need to increase their salary. They kept them there for 20-something years, and they never adjusted their wages. The security officers, we have a lot of security officers in Grenada. They used to collect $4 an hour under the NNP. The NNP never increased that hourly wage. The NDC came into power and moved that to $9.25 per hour, giving security officers a level of respect because they used to look down on them. But right now, if a security officer does a full month of work, he or she can go home easily with $2,800 or $3,000 if he or she gets that opportunity to do a double or two. So no longer are they seen as not important in this job market. They are earning something better, but under the NNP, they were collecting $4 an hour. Under the NDC, they are collecting $9.25 an hour. So the minimum wage is a very important way of showing the workers, the ordinary workers, that the NDC cares about the improvement, about the development, about better wages. You had Imani trainees who were collecting $700 and $800. They're now collecting $1,200. This is significant, but we have to articulate it because the NNPs out there every day making people believe that they care about the ordinary man, the poor and the vulnerable people in the country, or the working people in the country. And that's not the case. NNP doesn't really care about the worker, the working man or woman, or the ordinary people in the country. You look at pension. You had workers who were retiring after 30 years, 40 years of work back into poverty because the NNP refused to pay them their pension and their gratuity after serving the government and people of Grenada. Some of them 8 years, no pension, no gratuity after retirement. After retirement, they had to go and do other little work to make ends meet. The NNP refused to pay these people their gratuity and their pension. When the NDC came into power, the NDC paid $75.1 million in pension and gratuity to these workers who retired and waited. And not just waited, they demonstrated, they protested for their pension and their gratuity. And the NDC paid that. The workers docked salaries. NNP went into their salary and docked their salary, take their money because they protested, because they demonstrated for their pension and their gratuity. Come on, the evidence is there. The NDC is regularizing workers, making them permanent. It's a phased approach, but they're regularizing them and making them permanent. NDC cares about workers, but just look at the NNP. They gave these people contracts, 1 year contract, and you have to keep renewing it and renewing it and renewing it. That is what the NNP did to these workers. So the NDC is now regularizing them, making them permanent. And you know, the NNP believes that they have a voice and they can speak on the issue of pension and on the issue of gratuity and on the issue of making workers permanent. The NNP cannot, they don't have the authority to speak on this matter. Nope. Because they were in power for 23 years and a half. Why didn't they pay the people their pension and the gratuity? Why didn't they regularize these workers, make them permanent? They never did. Contract, 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 contract. 1 year contract. And you have to always be seeking to have it renewed. And then, if you talk too much, too loud, they could easily not renew your contract or make you go. And when you work for 30 years with this contract arrangement, you're going home with no pension and no gratuity. So NNP does not possess the authority to talk on pension and gratuity or to talk about workers and that they care about workers and they care about the poor and the vulnerable. No. No. You have hundreds of people in Grenada who are still using pit latrines in 2024. NDC is trying its best to get as many people as possible out of pit latrines. So they have the WASH program, building modern bathrooms and toilet facilities for our people. And this is significant, very significant.
Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning. You're calling me at the wrong time. I'm on my program live.
Good morning, Kim, Jules, and
Hello, hello.
hello. They can't stop you.
I'm not hearing you properly.
Yeah, they can't stop you at all.
All right,
They
how are you
can't.
doing?
Yeah, there you go. I ain't going into. I don't go in the market today at the home.
All right, so you're listening to me live and direct.
Yes, man.
All right.
Later, baby.
All right, nice. Yes.
Yeah.
All right, so that's my good friend in the market. All right. Uh, she just called to say they can't stop me. All right, nice. Gyoli. So I am saying to you, all you need to do is to look at the evidence, because the NNP, they're good at talking, but the NDC is an action party. During the NNP time in office, the workers, just to get an increase, they had to go on the streets and demonstrate and march for it. Because the NNP would offer them 0.5% or 1% or 1.5% increase or 2% increase in their salaries. They had to go and march and demonstrate for it. The industrial climate under the NNP was terrible. It was bad for everybody. Every Monday morning, some protest somewhere. Under the NDC, they didn't have to protest or demonstrate for the increase, No, they got 13% increase in their salaries. Over a 3-year period, they would get 13%, 13, 4%, 4%, and 5%. And not only that, they were able to get fringe benefits. That is why the union donkey, Brian Grimes, in my belief, commended the government to say it is the first time contract workers are getting the increase of 13% on the salaries. The very first time. It never happened before. This government decided to give them because they are workers within the government, even if they're on contract. So I am saying the evidence is on the table. The Poor Relief Assistance Program, the NDC increased the amount given to 65 years people and older in the program, and those with disabilities or challenges mentally and physically. So the evidence is there to show the free hot meal program. Who is that benefiting the most? The vulnerable people, the poor people. The free tuition program, the $810 that the parents don't have to fine to pay NULO or to pay TAMCC. Who is that benefiting the most? The ordinary man and woman in the country. When the government repair or renovate or upgrade the clinic, who is it impacting the most? The ordinary man. Look at the amount of clinics that have been renovated or upgraded. Look at the amount of schools that have been renovated or upgraded. And in some areas, they're building new schools. When the government renovates or upgrade the playing field in a community and light it, right? Or the community center in the community, or the basketball court or netball court, who will benefit the most? The ordinary youth, the ordinary man who wants somewhere to recreate, to get a sweat, to play football, to play basketball, to play netball, to just exercise. Because sometimes you cannot do it during the day. You go to work during the day. When the nighttime comes, or afternoon into evening, you can decide to go on the playing field and exercise or play some game. The government is focused on that, and they have been doing a very good job where that is concerned. You have to just check it out. This thing is not rocket science. The TAMCC workers, the government resolved this thing by paying them their money. You see, everything cannot be done overnight. There are some people who believe that the government should fix everything instantly. Turn stone into bread, turn water into wine. That is the thinking of some people. But I am saying the evidence is there. The CES program, where the small and medium-sized businesses got up to $30,000. Of course, everybody can't get, but the 500 plus small and medium-sized businesses that benefited from the program, it's a plus for them. It's a good thing for them. You just have to check it out, and you will realize that this government cares about the ordinary man in the country, the ordinary woman in the country. The NNP, they talking, they good at that. Yap, yap, yap. But when it comes to concrete action, many of the things that the NDC is doing now, the NNP should have done that long time ago, because they were there so long in power. Many of the things that the NDC is doing today, that should have been done under the NNP. But the NNP is out there saying, well, most of the projects and programs and so on that the NDC is doing, they started it. Okay, but you were in government, and if you're there for 23 years, and the NDC comes in and cannot find a program or a project that you started that's incomplete and that needs to be completed, then something is wrong. Something is wrong. But they expected the NDC to come and halt everything and run the economy aground. That didn't happen. So they're still in awe, they're still surprised, because the International Monetary Fund gave the NDC a A plus in terms of rating. The FROC, right, the Fiscal Oversight Committee, they're experts. They gave the NDC a A plus for managing the economy well and keeping the economy stable and liquid and creating jobs and opportunities and constantly growing the economy. So they're shocked the way things turn out. I was on a program last night with Bobby Steele, a good partner. We play domino together. We knock a drink together. We cool. He was NNP, and it's well known. He stated last night that if an election is called today or tomorrow, Andy Williams will get his vote, the Honorable Andy Williams, because he's convinced that the country is on the right path and that the Honorable Andy Williams continues to demonstrate good leadership and representation in the South. And he's delivering to the people of the South, the Great South, as he would call it. So there are people who are seeing the light. You have a lot of NNP supporters who have a liquor sense and they decided they can't support the NNP anymore based on what they have seen over the last 2 years this government did. And that is what you want. You want people who are reasonable in their thinking, who can call a spade and say, hey, the government is trying, the government did an excellent job here, there, and everywhere. If they're doing something that's bad, speak about it. Nothing wrong with that. But to date, they have done a very good job. We have not seen any convestor come into the country and con the government of millions of dollars and run away with it. We have not seen the government selling out our assets. We heard last night, for example, in the Mount Hartman area, 3 lots. They break up the land or they cut up the land in 3 lots. So they sold 2 lots to that private Chinese developer or those developers, right? The first 20 million US, the second lot 20 million US. So that money went into government coffers. But the NNP administration, they're known to sell our lands or prime lands. So the third lot is really the Dove Sanctuary, right? They had that up for sale too, to sell that too. But luckily, the Chinese developer or developers, they did not manage to buy that. So the 2 lots gone in Mount Hartman, and that's prime land, prime lands. But that's how the NNP administration function. They just sell everything, give away everything. But this government was able to get back the lands where the Radisson Hotel sits or is located. Because remember, the NNP administration gave that away to some race car driver in the UK. And we were able to get that back in the name of the people of Grenada. And also we were able to get back the land where the Kiwana Bay Resort sits. You know, the old Flamboyant Hotel, that area there, that was government owned, the land. So they leased the land. But the NNP administration, they gave it away, they sold it. Just give it away. And that is how they function. Look at the NDC, they were able to get back 5 acres of land to expand Kamahan Park. More green space for our people when you go to Grandans Beach. So the government is trying its best to improve the living standard and condition of our people. But you don't need to be a genius to realize that the NDC cares about workers in this country. And the Prime Minister made a very valuable point. Every May Day, the leaders of the NDC would go and listen, Prime Minister or opposition or just the leader of the NDC, right? So, like the most honorable Deacon Mitchell, he's the Prime Minister. He went to Labor Day and he would listen to the workers. There are some who would applaud him, thank him, praise him, and there are those who would criticize or condemn him. But he would listen to both sides. He would still go and face them. You ever see an NNP leader? You ever see Keith Mitchell in Labor Day? Or any one of them in Labor Day? Well, Peter David, he used to be with NDC. So we kind of understand, right? We ever see them actually in Labor Day, like the leader of the NNP? Keith Mitchell, mixing and mingling and listening to people, the working people. You ever see them there? No. Nope. So I am saying there are some people who could talk. They talk. They're good at that. And there are some people, the NDC could do all of these things. And they would still call a radio program and say, the NDC didn't do anything. Or they didn't see them do anything. Yeah. In fact, this morning, you had 2 NNP supporters after Teacher Mary, my good friend, spoke on WFM Plead Your Cause program. The 2 NNP supporters, they call and they say, nah, we ain't see nothing done. They're not doing anything. They ain't just like that. So there are some you could do as many things as possible. They will still tell you that they didn't see anything done. And that is why I encourage the folks in the diaspora, because I think you are more reasonable in your thinking, and I know you're more logical, meaning that you were able to, you left Grenada, you went back into the United States. Many of you went back to school. Many of you, accomplished great many things. So you're able to articulate certain things. You have to go to that meeting that the NNP will be having in New York and ask them some very tough questions. Ask them some very tough questions. Don't make them come and lie for you, because that is what they're accustomed doing. Coming to New York and lying. So you have to confront them with questions. Right? Because, look, Grenada is on the right path. These folks, they were there for a lot of years. What have they done to improve the lives and living standard of our people? Grenada should have been way, way advanced, more developed and everything like that. But look, they are fighting in the NNP. They are fighting for leadership. I remember the same Dwight Horsford. Well, I used to call him Horsey. This guy was in the NNP, and he was down to run in St. George Northeast. You hear me? And it was the said individual today who didn't want to give up leadership, who didn't want Dwight Horsford to run in that constituency. And if you don't know, that is where the whole issue with me and the NNP started, with the same Dwight Horsford. When I stood up and I said, well, look, this party is supposed to be democratic. You're supposed to allow the delegates in St. George Northeast to decide. And then he decided to run Kennedy Roberts, my good partner, Kennedy Roberts, and Kennedy Roberts lost. He lost that seat, right? But I'm telling you, now he wants to put Dwight Horsford as leader of the NNP. But there's a lot of pushback because he never treated Dwight Horsford well. But, he has no choice now. He wants to go back to him now and to see if he can get him to be leader of the party because he would still have a level of control over Dwight Hossford. But he doesn't want Peter David, because the minute time Peter David gets leadership of the NNP, Keith Mitchell is done. He's finished. He would have no say whatsoever, no control whatsoever over that party that he had that stronghold over for almost 40 years. And that's the history here, you know. And then you have Emlyn Pay, who she has no leadership qualities, right? But still, he would push her in front because he knows that if she gets leadership, he could control the whole party. And then he's bringing Nolan Cox along. Nolan Cox, I would tell you, he's a cool guy, right? Cool guy. His family, they were well known as NDC, you know, cool. And his style of politics is not the NNP style of politics, if you check it out carefully, right? Thankfully, the Honorable Tevin Andrews, he's doing a damn good job in Carriacou and Petit Martinique. He's holding it down nicely. He's delivering to the people of Carriacou and Petit Martinique. So Nolan ran in South, get leaks there, and he back up in Carriacou, more leaks. But I'm simply saying the NNP is in chaos, political turmoil. But they want to come to New York to lie for you. I remember this young man who confronted the NNP in a town hall meeting, right? Confronted Keith Mitchell, and that time NNP was government, and told him straight up he lied for the people. And he was able to prove where he was lying. Yeah, a young man bold enough and brave enough confronted him. A young man that I know. But I'm saying all of this to say to you, they're coming your way because they believe if they can come out there and lie to you, maybe they would get one or two people in the diaspora to support them. That is what they want. How for so many times they run them out on the people in the diaspora is what they say about all you. Is what they say. I played bowler. I played what Keith said. I played what Sheldon, all of them. What they say about the people in the diaspora. Yeah, because they have lost their way in the diaspora. They realize that the NDC is riding high in the diaspora. They realize that. So they want to see how they can make a little inroad. So they come in New York. I think sometime on the 14th or somewhere around there, coming to New York. But this weekend, the NDC administration, they will be in New York. All right? This weekend, you have a town hall meeting scheduled for the 30th of June. It starts at 4 p.m. at the Nazareth High School, East 58th Street, Brooklyn, New York, 11203, between Clarendon Road and Avenue D. The Honorable Ron Redhead will be there in attendance. The Honorable Tevin Andrews will be there. The Honorable Delma Thomas will be there. The Honorable Andy Williams will be there in attendance at that town hall style meeting. All right? And then there is a family fun day. Well, that I think is in July. Well, that's Sunday, July the 28th. That's a little time from now. I think they have an event, an event around that same weekend too. Around that same weekend, they have an event. I was looking for it because I don't know if it's a gala event or a ball or whatever that event is, but somebody did tell me that they have an event around that time too. I think on the Saturday, they have an event. I know the Carriacou support group, they have an event too. So quite a number of things, right? Quite a number of things. So Norma, my good friend, is saying, all right. But anyways, once I get the information, I will share it with you. But The NDC administration will be in New York on this weekend, right? So please attend the town hall meetings, attend all the functions, all the events out there, all events. So the NNP, they're coming after, but they're good at their lies. They concoct stories. And I love how our beloved Prime Minister answered the question of a government minister getting a loan from the Grenada Development Bank. He said, firstly, the Honorable Andy Williams was a customer of the bank before entering politics. You could imagine Kenny Lal Singh, for example, who was MP and Minister of Government for both parties during his time. But he's a businessman. You could imagine him having a relationship with a bank. And when he gets into the politics, he has to, cease that relationship. So no loan for you, no nothing for you. What would this gentleman fall back on after politics? You tell me. He is back with Calico, his company and so on. But you see, what the NNP wants is for these ministers of government to fall back into poverty. So give up all you had. Why Keith Mitchell didn't give up all what he had in the United States and here in Grenada? Because he entered politics. Because you see, these people believe that we're stupid. So the Honorable Andy Williams, he was a customer of the bank, getting loans from the bank because he had a business and he still has his business and things running, right? So he applied for a loan and it was approved. It's just that he ended up in government, right? And he met the criteria to get the loan. And what is wrong with a citizen of Grenada? And I want the NNP to tell me, what is wrong with a citizen of Grenada getting a loan from the Grenada Development Bank? And you must challenge them. They tell you, but there is some law that says that no sitting minister could get a loan from the Grenada Development Bank. That's a lie. That's a lie. Don't make them fool you. What is wrong with a citizen of Grenada getting a loan from the Grenada Development Bank? A loan means you have to repay it, You have to pay it back. It's not free money. You're not getting a grant. It's a loan. But I like how our beloved Prime Minister addressed it. Because the NNP believes that they could go there and spread all these lies and propaganda. Because check it out. Look at some of those NNP MPs or who are ministers and so on. The majority of them back into poverty, Yeah, the majority of them. That is why Lorena Waldron, for example, she has to be out there beating Tebe on Facebook and other social media platforms, in my belief. Right? Fighting to make ends meet. I don't know if she's still selling bread. Fighting to make ends meet after serving for a period of time in government. And you have so many of the others who go straight into poverty, back into poverty. Those who are smart, they could hold their own. They come out of politics and they're still surviving. They're still able to pay their bills and meet their commitments and so on. But generally speaking, the majority of those NNP MPs and who served in government with the NNP and so on, back into poverty, except those smart guys within the NNP. They got filthy rich. Filthy rich. But I am simply saying, you just have to look all the propaganda, all the lies, all the misinformation. We have to be able to say it as is and tell our people what's going down here. Right? You look at the NNP opposition podcasts and pages, they do programs too, and they would take somebody's image and put it at the front caption, right? Front of the video. So that if you on YouTube, by the time you see that, you might be wooed to view it or click it. It's clickbait. So they want you to click it so they can get views. So you may not be interested in what they're saying, but because you see that, you're going to, click. When you click, you realize, well, you're not interested in that, you move on, but it's recorded as a view. And they no longer use Facebook as before, because on Facebook, you can easily download their program. But on YouTube, you can prevent people from downloading it. So that is what, so they saying all kind of stupidness, all kind of rubbish. What I would do is to download it. But because they realize we're downloading it and we're exposing them, they decide, well, they're going to cut off the Facebook somewhat and go on YouTube. So they're going to prevent people from downloading it. That's how they're functioning. And they know what they're doing. So they line, all kind of rubbish on that other side. But you can't download it to cut it up and expose it, what they're saying, unless I use my phone or so to do so. And then it would be a challenge because you're going to only get it in audio version. Yeah, that's how they're functioning. Even the Bob report, you can't just download it like that anymore. When it used to be on Facebook, you could download, you could cut, you understand? So I am simply saying to you, it is clear that the NNP, they're losing their way. More and more people are supporting the NDC administration. We are going on to the third year. More work will be done. The PR will be improved. Don't fool yourself. The NDC PR will improve. Changes will be made, but it will improve. We're going to be able to market and sell ourselves more on the things that are happening in the country. So I want to wish you all the best. We are past the time. All right. I want to wish you all the best. Take good care. Have a wonderful day. I will be back with you tonight in the hub, starting from 8 in the PM. Have a wonderful day.